with our hair like this, and we just wear it like this because it's natural. Because the reason for it, you might say, is like a new awareness among black people that their own natural appearance, physical appearance, is beautiful and is pleasing to them. For so many, many years, we were told that only white people were beautiful. Only straight hair, light eyes, light skin was beautiful. And so black women would try everything they could, straighten their hair, lighten their skin, to look as much like white women. But this has changed because black people are aware. And white people are aware of it too, because white people now want natural wigs. They want wigs like this. Dig it? Isn't it beautiful? All right. Black is beautiful.
When my family came up around Homer, Louisiana, they migrated during the time when things was rough for the Indians, so they came to New Orleans, and they passed off as black because they was dark skinned, and they never even talked about it. They never mentioned it because they were scared because they didn't want to get sent to the reservation.
Hey. Stop that. Anybody find out you learn how to read, we all get whooped. Or worse.
First you gotta learn, ain't you?
It's the elephant.
No, child, that's elephant. Elephant.
Elephant.
Right.
What's elephant?
Well, see, an elephant is a great big old animal with a long nose. He live in Africa. That's where my mammy and papa came from, and all your family.
My mammy Cherokee. I ain't never been to Africa.
Well, Africa is a beautiful country. Long way from here, though.
Is that where my pappy is?
You hear that? No, child. But your daddy is a very important man, so you got to learn good, work hard, make him proud of you.
Stop that, Queen. Don't you ever think about your pappy. It don't matter to you. And you stop to put fancy ideas in her head, reading and stuff. She a slave. Ain't always gonna be one.
Slave's gonna be free one day. Everybody talking about it. I tell you, the day is coming when
Us ain't gonna be around to see it.
Well, maybe and maybe not. But things sure will be. And when that better day comes, we got to be ready for it. There ain't no use in having freedom if we can't use it, if we ain't got learning, to better ourselves. See, all I do is dream of that better day for her.
Well, you go on and dream. But you let that child be.
That day come. You'll see. That day will come.
Get out of here, you little brats. There. Don't cry. There's no need now.
But they call me names.
Well, people called me names too when I was little. Why do they do that?
'Cause I'm different. 'Cause I look white. 'Cause I read.
Queen, don't ever tell anyone that you can read. Some people wouldn't like it. They might try to hurt you.
But my pappy would have stopped us like you stopped those.
Captain Jack, take this child to the kitchen. Get her a sweet.
She been in trouble, Mouse?
No trouble at all.
Sarah Jane got some cookies in that cookie butter. How about some?
She'll still be yours.
You should have used the back door. You may go. I still gonna say again, Missy? Of course you will. This is another house, not another country. But you should know. This is the master's decision. I do not approve of it. But since it is to be, the child will be given every advantage. She will be trained as a lady's maid with all the necessary etiquette. So when you see her, keep your distance. I don't want to learn in your Negro ways.
I only want the best for her, Missy.
What you want has nothing to do with it.
There's no place easy for my kind. Here, both the whites and the Negroes call us mules. Neither race, n'est-ce pas? And the North, you must admit that Esplanade Street is a much finer address than a northern slum. But you mustn't worry about me. I'm sure that I will find a nice, fat, rich Creole to support me.
My boy.
Hello, my ass. Who this nigga up on that name?
What's the matter? Why you so ornery? You miss me, huh?
Oh, yes, sir. I miss you like a hog miss fly, like a baby. Miss Mammy Titty. I miss you like I misses a rock in my shoe. I asked you, who this nigga on that name?
It's Snowball. You wanna know my name or the name of my horse? You ask me.
That's who the hell you calling Snowball, horse boy? I'll snatch your black ass off that nag down here in the mud so fast make your head.
Steven. Let's keep it funny. Django here is a Freeman.
This nigga here?
That nigga there. Let me at least introduce the two of you. Django, this is another cheeky black bugger like yourself, Steven. You ought to hate.
All right, thank you guys for waiting. This is the Strategic Feminine here. I'm gonna do my intro in a second. I just wanted to tell y'all I'm here. I'm still coming. Oh, thank you. I love my intro. I was working on it and I just needed something to keep y'all in the chat while I was working on a few things. I'm still getting stuff finished up, so I just wanted to know who's in here. We're gonna get started very shortly, but how's y'all been today? It's been a great Saturday for me. I've got some stuff done, did some deep cleaning, so I'm very excited. What about the rest of the chat? Hey everybody. Hey Aurora, how are you doing? Oh, I do want to put a quick disclaimer in here because I do not want anyone to get upset with me. In case I mispronounce your name, I do apologize in advance and just tell me what your name is and I'll put it right the first time. I do not mean to be rude. I'm bad at pronouncing, like my pronouncing, and then everybody else is just two different things. So I do not want anyone to be offended. So a little bit of what the stream is going to be about. Of course, y'all been seeing the drama. It's pretty much died down. So this is going to be the aftermath, my finishing thoughts and opinions and what I see for this channel going forward. I'm a huge history fanatic. I love history. So y'all are going to hear me speak a lot about history, historical context, and what actually happens in black and white to our ancestors and predecessors many, many years ago. So that hopefully will be able to explain, my feelings about particular issues now and how I think we can stay on code moving forward, because I do believe that there's still a bit of work to be done. Oh, that's sweet. Eating a mushroom and truffle pizza and cutting up my pics for manifestation board. First of all, I love truffle. Truffle is like really, really tasty. And I'm loving that moon board. I actually wanted to do a digital manifestation board for my YouTube channel. I just never got around to doing it. I'm not sure if that's something that you guys would like to see. Would I like or whatever? I just felt like it would be so boring. I don't want to see what I want to do with my life. So I didn't post it, but all right, we're getting it done here. Okay, we're watching football. Oh, okay, I'm glad I said your name right. Perfect. I'm just finishing up on my thumbnail, Hopefully this one doesn't get stolen, but you know. All right, so let's get started. Okay, so I'm going to tell you guys first. Let's start off with my intro. Of course, welcome back to my YouTube channel, and today we're on live. This is the Strategic Feminine. We like to focus on all things feminine, all things girly, all things womanly in essence. And if you're interested in that, don't hesitate to like, comment, and subscribe. Stay tuned to the video. And also, if you're interested, if you have something to say, come up. I'm going to put my StreamYard link in the chat so you guys can come and speak with me, and we can kind of just have a little bit of an opinion. Hey, wake up. How are you guys doing? Okay, can everybody hear me? Is my audio good? I need thumbs up, and then we're gonna get started with the topic. All right, so if y'all don't know anything about me, I am from the South of America. I am descendants of slaves on both sides, from my mom's side and my father's side. I am also a dark-skinned woman, and I was raised in America for all of my life and more so. I do have one brother who is biracial, and he is biracial mixed with black and Mexican. So that is my entryway into my Hispanic culture and a lot of the Hispanic lore that I know about. He's my entry point because just being growing up around his family and his father taking me in had been where I had learned a lot about Mexican culture and then seeing how Hispanics treat black people. Now, I was never mistreated with his family. Of course, we're all family. I'm just letting you guys know a little bit of like who I am and what my history is because y'all don't know me. I could just be some random on the internet. So I do want to explain a little bit of where I come from. So both of my parents, I think we know what plantations they both come from. One thing about plantation owners or people who did own plantation in the South, they kept a lot of their money, even though they were upset about emancipation and all of that. They still were able to flip a lot of the slave money that they had and get into other industries. I believe my mom told me that from her family who owned her, they now own resorts and water parks and stuff like that. So people were upset about giving up their slaves, but they still had so much assets off of Black Americans being slaves and working for America for free. The history of slavery didn't actually start off as slavery. They were first having Black people kind of agree to come in as indentured servants, have been very profitable in America. We're very, very equitable Black people. And you will notice that that's why a lot of companies and consumers tailor to Black people, or you hear these channels saying, we're Black centered. Yeah, that's because Black people are very profitable. They're the only ones who are really outwardly, randomly spending money on frivolous things. Most other communities save or try to promote saving and promote frugal living. But we kind of live in that consumerist mindset. Yes, hello everybody in the chat. Yep. And then for my father's side, his people, they actually stayed in the South. They stayed in the rural area. They didn't go to the city. So they got to get some land. You know how everyone's like, "Oh, we need our reparations. We need our acre and a mule." I think they actually got their I'm not sure about the mule, but they did get their acres of land. And for years I thought they owned all of it, and it wasn't until very recently that I learned that they had a deal where they got half of the land and other half of the farmland was for another family. So honestly, Black Americans have many different storylines. Some early Black Americans went to the city and they left the plantations in search for a job and college education. Not everybody did that, and not everybody can relate to what happened to Black people when they left the countries and moved to the city. As we do know, hello, editing strategic here. You're going to hear me come in and out just to correct any false information. It was not the FBI, it was the CIA. There is a difference, so do not roast me. So if you guys are going to hear FBI, just ignore it and pretend I said CIA. The FBI put crack and flush crack into the inner city. I forget the time period, but y'all know it wasn't that long ago. The crack epidemic actually was probably one of the soonest projects we've had. And that messed up a lot of Black Americans in urban environments. That raised the crime rate for a lot of Black Americans in urban environments. It raised down the education level, and it made it really hard for those urban people to be equitable in the city. So that's where you see a lot of urban culture, where a lot of, oh, this black or urban culture is ruining, ghetto blacks are ruining America. You hear all these talking points. It kind of has something to do with the crack epidemic, which the FBI is proven to be responsible for in community with Black Americans. But I don't want to get in there. That happened during the 80s. That wasn't even that long ago. The 80s was some people was alive during. I know my daddy was alive during the 80s. So like literally that was nothing ago. That wasn't nothing ago. So yeah, we're not gonna get into all of that right now, but I want y'all to see like it's very, very deep. A lot of our mentality, a lot of our complexes. We have been the most messed with community in America as far as I'm concerned. Now, of course, I'm a Black American. I don't have any other experience outside of it. So, don't fight me for saying that, but it's true. But one thing we do not talk about is the glamour of Southern Black culture. Can I get an amen in the chat? Because one thing about dignified Southern Negro ladies, yes, I'm going to use the word Negro, is that they were always glamorized. They had always been their own beauty standard. They had always had their own fashion, and they have been very popular in the coming years. I'm going to show you guys some highly dignified Negro ladies and on the chat so y'all can see where I'm coming from, where you can see a little bit of where my history comes from, where my beauty standard comes from, and how that shows up in my everyday life. Because I know y'all be like, oh, you're so Black power. And it's not me being like Black power, more as I'm just so proud of the skin that I'm in. I couldn't imagine doing anything or being anything else. So I'm going to share this screen really, really quickly. So we're going to start off with The Imitation of Life. And The Imitation of Life is a movie, and it was about a mixed race woman. And this was made in the 1959. And she was kind of running away from her culture as a Black American for the most part. You can see in the movie, she very much so had like an issue with being like attributed to Black people or Black culture. She just really was upset about it for the most part. So we're going to show The Imitation of Life and a little bit of her complex. I am mixed with Black American, and I am not Black American. I'm East African, but I love and appreciate Black American culture and history. Oh, and I love that. Okay, perfect. What is East? So what region is like East Africa? Please let me know. Yeah, girl, I was like, what is going on? I'm not seeing any. Hi, Unika. So we're going to show The Imitation of Life and a little bit of, yeah, everyone share who they are and like where they come from. It's going to get people more comfortable with, different parts of the diaspora. While I'm pulling up this video, I'm actually going to tell you guys the first time I've ever met anyone different in the diaspora was a Somalian girl, okay? And I was in like fourth grade, I believe. And I, of course, was Black American. All I thought was Black American people were the only Black people in the world. I thought that we were the center of the universe. You couldn't tell me that. Like, of course, I knew there were Africans, but it just never really clicked in my head that there were people who were still living in those spaces. So I met this girl. She was my best friend, and she was from Somalia, guys. And I had never I had never once met a Somalian woman before, and we were like really close. And I really liked her, and she shocked me because she was Islamic, so she would wear her hijab. And the weirdest part was she would show us, because we were girls, so she was allowed to show us her hair underneath. And she showed us her hair, and I was so shocked. I was like, "Oh my gosh." Her hair was like type 2 hair. And I had never in my life seen a Black person with type 2 hair before. And I was like, "How did you get it to do this? Like what?" And she had completely broke my paradigm. And that's when I had learned that there were different type of people. Like there were different type of people in the diaspora, and I didn't know that before. So it's not always common knowledge like we think it is, that everything, everyone just knows about everybody and what every phenotype looks like, you don't know unless you know, and you don't know unless somebody tells you. And it wasn't until I met her that I was like, okay, black people can come with different features. With short hair, long hair, looser texture of hair, or thicker, kinkier texture. I will tell you, and this is fourth grade, so don't roast me. Your skin color and your hair texture were correlated. I thought lighter people had looser textures of hair, and vice versa with darker people and kinkier textures. I thought they were all the same. So to find out that they're not is crazy. Well, to find out when I was younger that they're not, it was crazy. So yeah, some of my best friends have been of African descent. Maybe not descendants of slaves, but they've been of African descent. So South Sudanese, East African contains Egyptia, like Egypt, Sudanese, well, Sudan, Somalia, Uganda, Kenya, and Ethiopia. And are there tribes in between each of those countries, or how does that work? How many tribes are in each of these countries? Like, we're gonna have to do a whole foreign black girl live. This isn't a foreign black girl live. I see very clearly we're gonna have to do a foreign black girl live soon because I'm learning so much already. So yes, we're gonna show this woman in her early parts of her life. The name of the woman is Sarah Jane, who is going to be the study. And she was white passing at the time of this movie. It was being released in the 1959s. So I'm going to show you guys right now what this movie is. It's called The Imitation of Life, in case you were interested in watching it on your own time. I saw pieces of it and I was really interested. I was like, okay, this is something that we can talk about, because when you don't know your history, you are bound to repeat it. It is what it is. So I'm seeing a lot of the current events and topics plug back into what they were talking about even back then.
Good afternoon, ma'am. It's raining so hard. I brought rubbers and coat to fetch my little girl home.
I'm afraid you've made some mistake.
Ain't this the 3B?
Yes.
Well, this is it.
It can't be it. I had no little colored children in my class.
Oh, thank you. There's my little girl.
Piola, you may go home.
Gee, I didn't know she was colored. Neither did I. I hate you. I hate you. I hate you.
Viola. Viola.
So that was when the girl was younger. I see that some of you guys have watched the movie. That's great. That's great. So that was when the girl was younger. She was, of course, white passing, so nobody knew that she was black, and she ran away from her black culture. I'm going to show you guys what happened when she was older. She had a white boyfriend, and he started harming her when he found out of her African or colored descent. And you see how they said, oh, you're colored? They didn't say, oh, you're mixed with some of the colored people. They said, oh, no, 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 no. Because at that time, the one drop rule was a law. And I'm going to get Aurora to come in here to drop some facts about the one drop rule. But I just wanted to show you guys some of the evidence first before I had guests come on and speak.
Frankie, you're late. I thought you'd never get here. Let's walk down by the river. I want to talk to you.
We can talk here.
Frankie, I'm having trouble at home.
Your mother?
Yes. Frankie, you said you wanted to take a job in Jersey. Couldn't we run away? I'd do anything to be with you. Anything.
That's not a bad idea. That's not a bad idea at all. Just tell me one thing.
Yes?
Is it true?
Is what true?
Is your mother a nigger? Tell me. Tell me!
What difference does it make? You love me.
All the kids talking behind my back.
Is it true?
No.
Are you black?
No, I'm as white as you.
You're lying.
I'm not.
You're lying.
I'm not.
And that's why it's kind of sad to watch this type of stuff. I don't have any, and that's my thing too. I'm going to play one more clip, but before, that's why it's sad. Some things, sometimes we don't really understand as women. We are placed in pretty hard circumstances. We're placed in like rock and hard places. So, what do? You want to find somebody who loves you, who has the means to take care of you. Some of the most educated men at the time who were making the most amount of money were white men because they didn't have to deal with the same discrimination. And if you know that you look in close proximity to white men, you may get in relationships with them, hide your identity, conceal your identity. And there was many dynamics like this where they are a seemingly white couple, and the white male may be racist, quote unquote, but he doesn't know that he has, essentially married a undercover black woman. The last video I'm gonna show is of the funeral where the mom dies, unfortunately, and she loses that bridge to her culture through her mother.
Shall not smite thee by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord shall preserve thee from all evil. He shall preserve thy soul. The Lord shall preserve thy going out and thy coming in.
Let me through. Please. Please let me through.
Stand back.
But it's my mother.
Stand back.
I'm telling you, it's my mother.
Please.
Mama. I didn't mean it. I didn't mean it. Mama, do you hear me? I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Mama. Mama, I did love you. Sarah Jane, don't! Miss Laura. Miss Laura, I killed my mother. I killed her. I wanted to come home now. You never know how much I wanted it. Come with us.
Now that I've added that movie for a little bit of context of what I'm going to be talking about, I did add the link for my StreamYard chat in case you guys wanted to come in and add your own opinions. So I'm seeing, and I've learned a little bit about this going up. Did she pay for the funeral? I believe, I'm going to be honest, I didn't watch the movie in its entirety. I think I scrolled across it on Facebook, and you know how Facebook has those long videos, and I got kind of caught into the whirlpool of it all. But I think someone did pay for it who was a really close family friend of both of them, actually. And at the end, when the mother had died, look how happily she proclaimed that that was her mom. How happy she was of her culture. Even in life she wasn't. So it's interesting. This is what happens in real life to women all the time. We're placed in situations where we alter ourselves, or maybe we don't have to alter but some women may have to appeal to certain standards in society in order to receive blah, blah, blah privilege, quote unquote, when it's really not a privilege. We're really just pitting women against each other with differences and allowing it because it's equitable for certain women. For certain women to pass off as white passing may put them in a completely different class than they were in when they were born to their slave parents. So understand that now it's very superficial. This conversation is about pretty privilege and dates and free shrimps and lobster. Before, this was a means of life, death, surviving, having your children be cared for, well provided, or being subjected to many years of discrimination. We've been discriminated against for hundreds of years, 400 years in this country. If you had the chance to stop it, even if that meant being deceptive, would you? If that meant your child didn't have to deal with racism and colorism and blah, blah, blah. And I think that some people aren't being as honest as they would. They would fake it. They would lie. They would change the way that they looked in a heartbeat if that meant that they didn't have to deal with what some of us go through on a daily basis. And I don't fault you for that. Your method for leveling up is your method for leveling up. I will say, however, I have to speak for the girls. We don't have any means of switching up. Me personally, when someone looks at me, I've never been asked what you're mixed with. They never need to know. They can just see what I am on my face, and I'm happy about that. So for some of us, these, you know, um, being dishonest about our background may not be a strategy for you. You may not be able to use that as a strategy. So there is other strategies out there for women. Right. Correct. I'm so happy that you guys are kind of following where I'm going with this. So that was very much so a little bit of what I was thinking of. And how did that clip make you feel? I know for me personally, that clip made me feel really sad because not only was it very heart-wrenching to see that she was running away from herself actively throughout the movie, it was also understandable because it was like, you know what? It must be hard for her. She's not, like you said, she doesn't look black. So why should she have to stand tall in that treatment if she doesn't look quote unquote black? You know, and that is what we're going through right now. That's what a lot of women are going through right now, where they call themselves or they have some type of love for their blackness, but they also don't know how to harbor that love for the blackness either. It wasn't taught to us as equally as we like it to be. So I'm going to speak about another woman that I am indeed in love with. Okay, you guys, this may be my next topic. I might do a full video on her because I just love her so much. Because she has been really influential in what we could do in our hometown. So it's we love her. We love her. She's been very influential in my life. I love thinking about history and looking back at influential Black women who did the dang thing and stand 10 on it because it's hard, especially in that time period, to do such a thing. The woman that I look up to is Madam C.J. Walker. If y'all don't know nothing about Madam C.J. Walker, you better ask somebody. Okay? I think, who was it? It was Octavia Spencer who played her in Self Made on Netflix. So her story has been going viral a few years ago. I don't know if people are still talking about Madam C.J. Walker, but in case you're not, she was the first self-made millionaire female in America. You know how hard it is in 1867 to become a millionaire, a Black millionaire at that? Okay. And Madam C.J. Walker was fresh. Okay. Madam C.J. Walker was fly. And that's one thing they don't ever like to talk about is how high class the Southern Negro aesthetic is. It just is what it is. The Southern Negro aesthetic has always been highly dignified. Highly dignified. Look at this. This is how people dressed often. This is how people dressed every day, all the time. This is not just a regular, Sunday's best. This is the uniform. This is the outfit. She created hair products for Black women and helped them grow their hair in the 1880s. This is very important because, see here, Octavia Spencer in the flesh. She was able to become very rich off of making natural hair products for us Negro women. Not only was she able to make a lot of money off of this, she bought a bank in the 1800s as a Black woman. I'm actually getting Madam C.J. Walker confused with Maggie L. Walker. Maggie L. Walker actually bought a bank, but this is similar to the time period. I'm going to show you guys pictures and stuff. So she was the first Black lady to own a bank. But Maggie L. Walker and then it's Madam C.J. Walker are still up there as far as influential inspirations for Black Americans. He bought a bank. Do y'all understand how deep this is? So understand that where you're at or quote unquote privileges have nothing to do with your strategy. You can be strategic and go down in history as the first self-made female millionaire and never be held down by anything. Look at her. I wanted to find this picture. You see this picture of her in Vanity Fair. She is riding a car. You know how expensive these cars were back in these time periods, you guys? These cars are very expensive. And she owned one and she was out here stunting with her homegirls. Look at this. Madam C.J. Walker is very much so an inspiration to me and will forever be an inspiration to me because look at how she was able to build her pedestal, build her platform off of all she had around her. She just had a community around her who was willing to invest in her products and invest in who she was as a person. And that did it for her and that helped her. Very much so helped her in her level up journey. So even back in these days, we've had women who had to put their pride to the side and really find a way to make it, even when it wasn't easy for us to make it in these time periods. And we see that depending on what you look like, depending on the differences in your culture, they may have had a different way of leveling up. It may have been a different way of leveling up, quite frankly. So I wanted to see if any of you guys were wanting to come on to the panel. I'm going to drop my link in the chat really quickly in case you guys wanted to add anything to the conversation. I'm just going to put it right here. So come on, definitely share your opinions on the two ladies that I shared. And if you have any other history, I know that we were talking about history a little bit earlier this morning, so I wanted to carry that into this live stream. I think I'm like a huge history nerd, so I wanted to learn some new things. I know that Wake Up had some things that they had posted on their channel about Irish immigrants, and I believe it was Italian immigrants as well who were mistreated in America early on. So I was wondering if they were willing to speak about that on the panel. But Madam C.J. Walker, we're gonna watch a clip about Madam C.J. Walker and what she had an adversary. She had an adversary. She didn't start off this business just by herself. She had help. There was a woman named Annie Malone, and she had also had her own hair care line too. Now, I'm not sure how accurate Self-Made was, but it's made it seem as though they were working together at one point, and that they were in close cahoots with each other. So we're going to watch that clip as well and see a little bit of the dynamics between both of the ladies, Annie Malone and Madam C.J. Walker, even in this time period, growing up, 1800s, had to make some type of money, and they only had themselves to do it. Nobody was saving them. None of the men were saving them or giving them the soft life, quote unquote. And then another thing about she was a philanthropist. So she was very, very, she diversified her palette. She didn't just stick to natural hair. So once she got her natural hair back, she kind of just went on and made Madam C.J. Walker. She kind of went on and made other big moves to make sure that her money was like diversified. So it was very nice to watch that happen as well with her and her platform.
It's a name that's familiar to a lot of St. Louisans. It's on this children's home. It's on this street. It's on an annual parade, all named for Annie Malone. It's also a name that comes up during Black History Month a lot, and appropriately, because it's a fascinating story of rags to riches. But like a lot of interesting stories about interesting people, over time, they sometimes get boiled down to a couple of paragraphs, if that, or maybe just a name on a sign. About 10 years ago, we set out to find out about the real Annie Malone. And fortunately, we found some people who were more than willing to help us out. You start your search in the Ville, where as much as it was shaped by her. In 1917, she built the Poro College building, the headquarters of her black hair and beauty care empire, which had tens of thousands of sales agents around the country, even the world. It was a business that made her a millionaire. Although the business and the building are long gone, there is now an Annie Malone Drive and the Annie Malone Children and Family Center, which sponsors the annual Annie Malone Parade. But this place really owes its existence, right, to Annie Malone's money, right?
Absolutely.
This building.
This building. She gave the first $10,000 that made this building so.
Yeah. But when Resource Development Director Linda Nance set out a few years ago to write an article about the real Annie Malone, she was surprised at just how little there was to go on.
We have things that we found in different places, and there's no central place for information about Annie Malone, and that's a bit of a problem. We want to make sure that that does become so.
One reason the archives got scattered is because Malone moved her home and her business operations to Chicago in 1930, but she remained involved with the children's home and came to St. Louis regularly for the rest of her life.
I remember as a person.
Mildred Boyd is one of those people who is working to keep the Annie Malone story from slipping away. Her grandmother was friends with Malone. This is a newspaper photograph of the two of them in Hot Springs, Arkansas. But Boyd was just a little girl.
But she was kind of scary to me. Yeah. And she wore a lot of those big hats, and then they would just really frighten me a lot.
You knew she was an important lady.
Oh, yes.
But even she didn't realize until recently just how impressive Annie Malone's life was. Not until she ran across a copy of a 1927 booklet entitled Poro in Pictures. The book tells the official Annie Malone biography and company history. How Annie Malone was born in Metropolis, Illinois, was orphaned, went to high school in Peoria, where she began to mix up her first batches of hair straightening. She moved to the Metro East and started her business in this building in Lovejoy or Brooklyn, Illinois. In 1902, she moved across the river to St. Louis, to the Mill Creek neighborhood, first on Market Street, and then into a bigger building on Pine. She was developing not just hair and beauty products for Black women, she was developing a sales system. Women were trained as agents, and not just in selling door to door, but also in demonstrating the use of the Poro products. The business was so successful that Malone built, at the cost of $500,000, her new Poro Beauty College in the Ville. At the time,
sorry, the video was 9 minutes. We weren't going to watch all of that. I was just showing how Annie Malone was also like a competitor of hers, and how she was also able to build her wealth and help out her area. I believe that there was a little bit of controversy between the Annie Malone and this Madam C.J. Walker, but that also could have just been for the movie to give it a little bit of extra, pizzazz. Who's to say that those women knew each other actually? Okay, so we're going to talk about the one drop rule as well, because this is one thing I didn't know about. And one thing I will say, being a Black America, fully Black, there are going to be some things that are going to be in your blind sides. Like, I never knew, and it wasn't until I was watching Aurora's video, that the one drop rule had something to do with mixed kids not getting the assets of their white fathers. So you see that there's a lot of videos talking about one black rule. And what, a lot of people are getting away from the one black rule now, especially when you see that mixed race people want to have their own identities or make it to where they're separated, not separated, but more so in an adjacent space from the black community, not directly considered black as they usually are. The one black rule is definitely something that still shapes a lot of my mentality, a lot of our mentality in general, just being in America and understanding the laws and the rules and why they were put together. So we're also going to play this video.
A mixing pot for different cultures, religions, and races. When it comes to race, American people who are black are often categorized by an old rule. It is called the one-drop rule. Joining me now from Philadelphia is Yaba Blay. She is a scholar and activist. She is the author of One Drop, Shifting the Lens on Race, which is available now. Welcome, Yaba, and congratulations on your book. You dig into the constructs of being black and the color lines that certain colonial powers put in place, to sort of categorize people. Can you explain to our viewers what the one drop rule means?
Right. So the one drop rule is really a way of us thinking about blackness, both as a matter of biology and a matter of law. The one drop rule was instituted in this country with the enslavement of African people, when there was a question of what to do, not only with the blacks, but what to do with the product of the so-called mixing of the races, which was really the white colonists raping enslaved African women and those women having children. And so the question was, how do we make sense of who these children are? Do these children belong to these white American fathers? And so in creating this rule of hypodescent, which essentially said that if there is any person in your bloodline who is black, then you too are black or would be considered black. At the time, they defined whiteness as pure, and that's the language that they use. And so in order to have access to the privilege and advantages assigned to whiteness, you had to be pure. If you had one drop of black blood, however which way you quantify that, then you were black.
I think that was all of the evidence that I had to show for today, but that was a lot of what I had not even known. I didn't even think about that, and that was never even explained to us even in school. I think that they explained slavery, but they never really went into deepness about what the little micro consequences of slavery was for everyone involved, not just full black monoracial black people, but for the people who also were products of the what they said there was assault of these black women, and that was with the produce of mixed race children. I believe in the clip of the Imitation of Life, the woman wasn't even in least bit concerned about the white father who had. No, it actually wasn't. It was another clip. Actually, I had just saw this clip, and I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to find it because it wasn't on my account, but it broke my heart. I'm going to just tell y'all, it broke my heart. And even though I couldn't put myself in there, it was still bad to be there. To be there anyway was a very bad thing. So I'm gonna see if I can find the clip of it. I'm not sure if I can. If I can't find it, I'll just put it in the community tab. But yeah, that's how that was always what I was never really introduced to the opposite end of what it could have been to be black in this country and what it could have been like for folks who were one drop ruled into blackness, especially because the one drop rule wasn't explained to us really entirely. I myself, I think I go by more Pan-Africanist views. I believe like all of us represent one black race, like one black people. I believe in the unity of black people. And I believe that that wasn't even explained to us. I don't believe anyone explained to me, hey, you're a Pan-Africanist. I just think that in America over time, we just had these views. So when I got older and I see that everyone didn't have these views, you could have been Black and didn't feel like, you had any solidarity with Black Americans, or maybe you were a Black American and you didn't feel like you had any solidarity with Black Africans. It just was like, wow, it was weird to see how some of the paradigms that I had weren't transferred over to other people. And I believe that it's all just due to being a victim of what is inherently the standard of quote unquote white pureness, which of course we understand that that can't be true if biology has told us anything. If we all are originates of Africa and the original person was brown skinned, the cheddar man, they said the cheddar man was brown with blue eyes, I believe. It would be very incorrect to label anything outside of whiteness not pure, but they did that so they could keep their money. They didn't do that for no reason. They did that so they could keep their money. And I said that so I can go into the latter half of this video. There are manufactured Black insecurities that are here to keep other people rich. Simple as that. As you can see through all of these little itty bitty clips that I have shown you guys, all of these things are not, they are projected onto us by outside forces. These are not internal conversations. These are not things that we think to ourselves just randomly. These are things that are happening to us, and then we try to, in a way, rationalize it in our mind. And when we rationalize it, we give it power that it never needed to have. Stupidity doesn't deserve power. Racism and being unfair towards people, discriminatory towards folks with darker skin tones or difference in looks, that is never okay. But that is what's been perpetuated by the white race historically because it was profitable for them to do so. Think about it like this. Every hair store that you see in the hood, who owns it? I started seeing recently that they started hiring Black girls to man behind the desk. But even like in my day when I grew up, that wasn't always the case. They didn't always have Black girls manning the beauty supply drawer and stuff. So it's built like that because Black people were very equitable. Black eyes lend in a lot of money. And a lot of these manufactured insecurities are here so we can be fighting amongst ourselves instead of amongst the system entirely. Because if the system isn't broken, everyone still gets paid. And you can see that this continues to be something that happens within YouTube. Within YouTube, you're seeing a lot of race politic, and race politics are nothing new. Race has been a topic of conversation, but for the most part, I believe that it's exacerbated due to the insecurity that folks have around their race. And I believe that a lot of the insecurity around folks' race is tied to, of course, outside pressures, but now I'm starting to see that it's manifesting itself as body dysmorphia. So it's very important to speak against all types of stuff like that because it's very messy out here. And understand that one group of people can be getting discriminated against one week and then it be another group of people the next week. That's what a lot of this YouTube beef has kind of taught me, quote unquote, about what this, world is and what money makes sense and what money means to the regular everyday person and what they're willing to do for the money. Because you see that folks are willing to say anything in order to bring the Black race down a peg, in order to have the Black race look down unfavorably. They're willing to say what have you, whatever, in order to make money off the Black race. Some people's coon chips kind of just, activate like that. But you see how very clearly it happens so often, and even in this industry on YouTube, to where folks will manufacture insecurities amongst Black people so they can go back and forth and argue amongst themselves. Actually, let's pull up. I'm not done. I said I was done. Let's pull up this Good Hair documentary by Chris Rock. Because I remember watching the trailer for this as a kid, and I was always it was free. I guess they didn't make it free anymore. I remember watching this documentary, and of course, Chris Rock is funny. I think he would be the only one to actually pull off a documentary like this. I thought that it was irritating to say the least. Because he would ask them, so what I could get for this kinky hair? What can I get for this kinky hair? And the guy was looking at him like, we don't want that crap. We do not want that. We do not hand that over to me now. We do not. We can't help you with nothing about that. So it was very interesting. I thought that was going to be the last little bit. No, we're going to show this Good Hair documentary as well, because this also has to do with the conversation.
What's your definition of good hair?
Somebody looks relaxed and nice.
If your hair is relaxed, white people are relaxed. Your hair is nappy, they're not happy. Oh, God.
This October, Chris Rock will take you back to your roots.
Just yesterday, my daughter came into the house and said, Daddy, how come I don't have good hair? I wonder how she came up with that idea.
Within the Black community, if you have good hair, you're prettier or better than. The lighter, the brighter, the better.
They want to go like this, like Farrah Fawcett.
There's so many pressures to straighten your hair.
Look at my ring, still there. Relax is the chemical that will take a Black woman's hair from this and change it into this.
It's kind of like a torture session.
Could you tell us how dangerous relaxer is?
Sodium hydroxide will burn through your skin.
So that can's got a good purge.
This whole side was burnt off, and that's how the asymmetrical look came in with salt and pepper.
So you saying your hair is addicted to relaxer?
I am on the creamy crack.
Creamy crack.
So what's in your hair now?
This is a weave.
This is a weave. 2 pieces here, like extensions.
Like that.
The black hair business is a $9 billion business.
One of these can run you $5,000.
Well, I have a layaway plan, so you can lay away the weave. That's right. Have you ever put your hand through a Black woman's hair?
Hell no, not a black woman.
You just don't touch it. Do not touch my weave.
No. Does your wife let you touch her hair?
The question is, do I let her touch mine?
Weave sex is a little awkward.
What do?
I guess stay on top.
This is a 7,000-pound batch of relaxer.
This will last Prince about a month.
Get ready to go around the world.
Right now, I have Indian hair.
Human hair is India's biggest export.
Minimum 10 inch to 40.
10 inches and better.
Yes.
It's like porno.
Tell me.
In the award-winning new comedy that Vanity Fair calls hilarious.
Has anybody ever tried to steal your hair?
No.
If you see some Black women, just run the other way. What I really wanted to know, if I could make any money selling black hair. Black hair! Would you like to buy some black hair?
They don't want to look like, alpha cut like this. You make sure the hair straight, look more natural.
So my nappy hair is not worth anything.
Good hair.
My advice for men when they're making love to a woman who has weave is keep your hands on the top.
I don't care. Chris Rock is funny. I think Chris Rock is one of those comedians that can make anything funny. He can make genuinely anything funny as far as I'm concerned. So I remember being a kid and seeing that Good Hair video, Good Hair documentary, or the ad for it at least. And when he was like, we don't want no afro, look like you from Africa. What some straight, look more natural. I was offended. Like, what do you mean? And that is true. You know how much it costs to yeah, that's funny. That's funny. I couldn't even feel offended. You know how many negative stereotypes were up and through that ad, and I just couldn't find a way to be offended. He's just too funny. And it's true. When I try to find myself buying Afro kinky textures of hair, you can't find any. That one joke, if you see a whole bunch of Black women run the other way, I didn't like that joke. That joke was like, okay, you could have kept that to yourself, Chris. All right, we're not trying to scare the young little Indian girl now. Ain't no reason to put that in, because saying stuff like that to the children, you don't realize people actually think about it. Yeah, people actually, and then what if she tells her daughter, hey, I don't know, if you may not want to be around them Black girls. And what's worse, even when I get my Afro kinky bundles, right? When I get my Afro kinky bundles, um, sometimes they're not even authentic Afro kinky bundles. Like they're just it's like permed really tightly, so they tightly coil it, and then they relax it. So it's almost as if like it's kind of like Afro hair, but it really isn't naturally the Afro texture, which kind of sucks. So it's really hard to find a good Afro kinky unit. And it's weird how they're saying, "Oh, no one liked that hat from Africa," but I've been seeing a lot of Asians texturizing their hair as of recently. Let's pull that up. Asian people are getting afros or perming their hair for afros, which I wonder why now. But you see how the black standard has always been profitable. Okay, they said they made $9 billion off of hair. You know what? That was probably in 2000 something. $9 billion in hair is absolutely crazy. So imagine how much money we keep these people afloat because it's mostly tailored towards black people anyway. It's black centered, black woman centered. The hair game. Imagine how much money, how many people have been able to send their kids to college, make all types of neurosurgeons off of their beauty shop industry, sending their kid to neurosurgery school off of your weave purchase. So black eyes have always been equitable. The black community has always been equitable, and that's why you see on YouTube and you see in every other industry, they're going to fight tooth and nail for your attention. They're going to fight tooth and nail for your support. They're going to fight tooth and nail to become your standard because they know that being your standard is very, very, very beneficial for them monetary wise. I just saw a older Asian guy with Wix online. Apparently he's broke but has money for hair apparently. What? Wix? Why are they wearing what is it? Why do they want Why do I see the Wix? Okay, let's go through this Wix. Okay, let's go. Okay. This type of stuff is being a lot more common. So we know who's running the beauty standard amongst the men, okay, y'all? I'm sorry. I couldn't take the music seriously. It was like, "Oh, McDonald had a farm." Um Yeah, not to mention that these communities put their money together, like it goes beyond parents and grandparents. These uncles, aunties, and cousins, they all pitch in and their community stay on code. Yes. One thing about Hispanic people growing up that I learned, they all live in the same house. What? They all live in the same house. Uncles, grandmas, grandpas, they centralize the money and they have lots of it to go around. They're not so keen on Americans. We have a real individuality problem. We all want to be individuals. We don't want to be a part of a collective or a community. We feel like that makes us boring. Falling in line or staying on code, that's boring for Americans. But that's literally how most of these communities are able to keep their money and keep their wealth and establish it and bring it beyond where their generation has brought them. So it's very crazy to see how, we also have been able to kind of have some of the same success in these beauty industries and these beauty standards, but we haven't been able to centralize the money. And the reason why we haven't been able to centralize the money for the most part is because we're not on code, okay? We are not being on code. Now, I do not care about your dating preferences. I don't care who you like to date. I think that all love is love and love is beautiful. And if you're able to find some real, genuine love out here, you should cherish it regardless of what the person looks like. But putting other people, like other races of people, as romantic options above your race looks crazy in every sense of the word. I don't care who's doing it. Putting other people on pedestals is weird when it comes to romance. The white community does it too, which is why most of them keep their wealth. Yes, they also do as well. They keep their wealth very. And another thing that I notice that very wealthy people do is that they get their kids in community with other wealthy people quick, fast, and in a hurry. Even if they're not the wealthiest of the wealthy, they will get their kids around other wealthy communities because they know by association you're better off meeting and staying in connection and community with these people that you've met growing up. That is very true as well. They definitely centralize groups and all types of money making avenues. If it ain't making money, it's not making sense. And that's how a lot of people operate. And I believe that we need to add this. Part of being on code is we need to be standing with everybody that is a part of the Black quote unquote diaspora. Now I saw some claims. I wanted to wait till the end because I really didn't want to address the drama while I knew everybody was watching. I saw some claims that, apparently I didn't acknowledge that there was a diaspora. There was no such thing as a diaspora from my Uncle Ruckus mentality. If they actually watch the video, they can see within the first 5 to 4 minutes, I had mentioned other races or other ethnicities of Black people that were not necessarily a part of my group, but were still a part of the diaspora that are respected. So, oh yeah, they are kings and queens of miss it, fake it till you make it. You get families robbing Peter to pay Paul just to stay in status. Oh, absolutely. That's one thing they don't play about is that status or the look of everything. What was y'all remember in White Chicks? He was like they were broke. And they were broke and they were so broke that they were like stealing from the fundraiser, even though that was White Chicks, but they were stealing from the fundraiser in order to keep up their image because they still wanted to remain in community with their rich, wealthy friends, even though they were going through stuff. And he was like, how broke are we? MC Hammer broke. And they started crying because once you lose your access to assets in certain communities, that's just as good as being excommunicated. I'm just being honest. Certain communities, they do not go off of charity work. Not at all. We do. We like to do charity work. We like to help people for free. Black people have built America for free and have asked for acres and a mule, which we haven't gotten yet. We haven't even thought to ask for interest based off of acres and a mule. So it's interesting to see how people use money as their tools and how we use money as our tool. A lot of us, we don't keep the money in the home. A lot of us, we can't keep the money in the home. There's so many different factors that hits us. Hello.
Hey.
How are you doing today? It's late. We're about to be at 12 p.m. in my area.
Yeah, it's same. It's almost 11:30 here right now. So yeah, it's late.
We giving you guys a late night chat just so you guys can see a little bit of what we're passionate about. This is the first time I'm actually meeting Aurora, so thank you so much for coming on the panel. I've loved your video so far, so I'm really glad that you've joined me tonight.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's nice to finally talk to you and be on the live. I'm pretty new to like going on people's lives. I've only been on one, and that was with Multi like last week. So
No, I understand, and I definitely let me know if you ever feel uncomfortable. I gotta say that. But if anything you don't want to answer, you're of course not allowed to answer, and then we will move on to the next question. But of course, it's gonna be a vibe. It's gonna be a vibe, so you don't have to worry about it.
yeah. I'm down to answer questions. I mean, that's why when I made my videos, I'm just like, look, there's like so much stuff that goes on that I just want to talk about and so passionate about. So, I mean, I'm pretty much willing to share anything. Of course, I'm like, I don't tell a bunch of different things, but I'm willing to share a lot, just so people can know what's going on because it's crazy.
So, if you guys do not know, Aurora is new to YouTube. She's been speaking about a little bit of Black issues, Black-centered topics. I'm going to show the channel in a second where I share my screen, but do you mind sharing your Black background for anyone who is not in the channel or they're new to the space entirely?
Yeah, how do I do that? Because I'm on my phone. So I'm
No,
not...
I just mean share like where you're from and everything. I'll share my screen.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, well, actually, with YouTube, I have been on here like maybe 7 or 8 years ago, but I did completely different content. Like I actually was a tarot reader for a while, and I had like 25,000 something subscribers, and it was like it blew up really quickly. But then I got out of that. I actually I grew up in the church, but I came back to Jesus. So I had made this YouTube channel just kind of renouncing all of that. And now, as far as where I'm at here, I speak about a lot of like Black issues and mixed race issues because I'm biracial or mixed. My mom is white, my dad is Black and Cuban. So I have a lot of different perspectives and always have growing up, and just from both sides, the Black side, the white side, and then even with the Hispanic side, it's just always been kind of like this duality that I had to face with my own identity, and a lot of people policing my identity and telling me you're not Black enough, and now here recently I'm getting you're not the right kind of Black. So there's just all kinds of different things that's been going on. I actually when I first came on here, I actually was looking at like the Exoticals for a while because I thought that that was more about like mixed race, and then I just been kind of all over here trying to figure it out. And then the first people I actually saw was like Christy and her content. And I listened to her for a while too. So I've been all over just trying to figure out different things from different perspectives.
I actually love that. And I know this has nothing to do with race, but I also was into tarot for a while. I was a part of like that witchy lifestyle. And I didn't know that I was. And then I recently got baptized and, dedicated my life to Christ again. And so I've also renounced the use of tarot, the use of witchcraft. So it's interesting that you brought that up. So we relate in those ways.
Yeah, it's so interesting. So many people are actually coming out of the New Age and witchcraft and coming to Jesus because before I even did it, so the one lady, Doreen Virtue, I don't know if you've heard of her, but if you read tarot, maybe you have. But she used to make oracle cards, and she had her own decks, and she made millions of dollars in that industry, millions, wrote books and everything. And she had this dream, and Jesus kind of like she had an encounter with him, and she renounced all of that. And it was so weird because when I first saw that, I was already kind of starting to get that nudge. And again, my family, they're all Christian, and my dad is a deacon, so it was always surrounded, and I knew about it, but I didn't know Jesus. I really didn't know Christ. So yeah, I went through that. And then when I saw her testimony, and then maybe a few months later, I had that encounter, and it's just so powerful. And it lets me know like, wow, God's real. Like if I had any doubt, I definitely don't now. So that was like my whole YouTube channel. I almost quit my 9-to-5 because I was making so much money off of YouTube, and I was so busy because I had all of these different people that I was reading for, and I did Reiki, and I was like going to have my own business starting up. I bought a bed and all this stuff. I had all these people I was doing Reiki on. It was insane. And then that's when I had to renounce all of it once the Lord came into my heart. So it was just, it's crazy. It's really crazy how when that happens.
It's crazy because the Lord, he comes, and when he comes, and he just changes your whole life. I mean, I remember because I was doing readings for people too, and I was really into it. And what was crazy, I was really good at it too. And I had to learn the difference between talents and counterfeit talents. And I think that reading tarot was a counterfeit talent to me. I do believe that I like to like relate to people, and I like to read things and read different people about their background. But I also believe that there are counterfeit teachings, faux teachings, or secret sacred teachings that were only taught to dim the light of the Lord, quote unquote, quote unquote. But we didn't want to get into that today. Well, I did. I always want to get into the Jesus. But one day we may talk about this. If people are actually interested in tarot, which I do see that even though I see that people are getting away from New Age, I do see that some people who are just now hearing about it are getting into it. And I'm like, oh no, because it's like, dang, they're going to have to go through their own process. But it's like when you already know the ending, it's kind of, it hurts to see people go through their process. I won't lie. But yeah.
Yeah, it really does. I mean, and I kind of think about when I was in it and there were people that did tell me certain things, but one thing that I can point out is people weren't constantly trying to judge me. They let me go through what I needed to go through. Like some of my friends that were already following Jesus, my family, they didn't agree with it, but they didn't say, "Oh my gosh, you're wrong. You know, you can't do that." They just let me do it. And I had my journey, and that made it so much better because I don't know what it would have been like if they judged me and disowned me or whatever. You know, it might have been harder.
You may have went even further towards it because of the rejection, actually. You know,
Exactly.
so it's very even with like sex work and stuff. I try to veer in the very neutral start like point of it, because pushing too hard will get rebellion, but not pushing hard enough will lead to uneducated people going around. So what is up with this one drop rule? Because apparently this was used to keep mixed people from their assets. What can you tell me more about this?
Yes. So, as we know, obviously, back in slavery days, and then with white people, they didn't even see Black people as fully human. So there was already that. So that was what allowed them, you know, quote unquote, allowed them to even treat Black people and slaves the way that they did. But as far as the one drop rule, that was that law because they did not want to give any, well, for one, they didn't want Black people to prosper at all. So even if they wanted like just a full Black family wanting to prosper and own anything, own land, that kind of negated that. Like they couldn't do it. But when they would assault the slaves, like the Black women, and they would have children with them, these children, of course, some of them, like you say, like the house, you know, N-word, and the field N-word. I'm not going to say the N-word, but like that's where you get that from, because a lot of the mixed people, they would be in the house and they would have a better, you know, and I'll just say better in air quotes, upbringing, but it wasn't, they were still treated as if they were Black slaves, and to the point where they would not get any assets. So they, whatever the slave masters act, his children with his wife, they would get his money, his inheritance, like whatever would happen to him, it would go to the children. But there's like whole children, like if you think of Thomas Jefferson and all of his ancestors, you know, like they didn't get anything. So but yeah, that is what happened to, that's what the one drop rule, that was part of it, that they would never get it. So, you know, when you had mentioned with some of the slave owners, they didn't want to lose their slaves, but then they started like putting their money in resorts. So like their children that were biracial, you know, they didn't get any of that. So there's actually a lot of Black folks that are entitled. That's why the whole reparations thing, they're entitled to certain assets just based off of their birth. But because of that one drop rule, that negates all of that. So it's just really interesting. And that's why they did it, because they were racist and they didn't want to share that, because it was just like, yeah, they just assault the Black women and
We just
make
create these kids and not take care of them. Who else does that sound like? Okay. So it
Yeah.
sees, okay. So we see that it's not just certain, this is a man thing. This is gone down in history. Okay.
Yes, yeah, a man thing. It's so interesting because, and even with the Imitations of Life, when you think about it too, with the mother, you know, she's left with the daughter. I mean, I don't remember. I saw that movie when I was little, so I don't remember what happened to the father, if he died or if that was just, you know, I don't know what the deal was with that, but that's just like a, you know, representation even of what the children, they were left with their Black mother, and they, a lot of them were ashamed, and it's not because they hate being Black, it's just the treatment and what happens with it. And so I just had this conversation with my dad because someone was in the comments on my one video, what the last one, that when I was talking about like Rosa Parks, Malcolm X, and different people, and I was saying that they were mixed, not like they're Black, but they did have a mixture. But Frederick Douglass was actually biracial, and the reason why he was able to even be educated more even though he was still treated as black, but he did have a little bit better treatment because his father was white and he did have that opportunity. He was able to kind of slip through with that, but he also used it to teach the black slaves and other people how to read and write.
I was going to show this clip, and I'm going to find it because that act you just hit on a point and I have to find it. But I never knew that Frederick Douglass was biracial. In his school, they always just called him black. That was it. They never even mentioned his biracial heritage. And that would explain why he was more educated than the average Negro. And the clip that I'm going to show you guys when I do find it, the mulatto girl, and that's what they called her in the video. That's why I said it. They were tormenting her. Oh, you're not white. You're not white. But they were saying in there, you think you're better because you can read? And that hit me somewhere deeper because I'm like, wow. So, depending on where your proximity was, certain women got education, certain black people got education, and certain people didn't. So when you see how biracials may be the face of black people, they may have been the best that black people had at the time if you can't even read your laws. So that's important. That's very important. And I believe that was purposely skipped over in history. So we didn't know about that. I had no idea that Rosa Parks, I think I knew Malcolm X, but Frederick Douglass was biracial. I had no idea.
Yeah, well, and it's because, again, with the one drop rule, they never considered, like, they didn't really say, oh, you're mixed or biracial. And that's why I think even to this day with mixed and biracial, specifically with mixed with black, people just will identify as black, but then because that's how it was in America. Like, if we were living 100 years ago, like me being mixed with black, I would just be black no matter what I look like as far as my phenotype. Because even in the movie with the Imitations of Life, once they actually found out that she was black, she's black, even though she looks white. So there was no such thing as mixed or biracial. But yeah, technically, if you go off the DNA, and he put in his autobiography that his father was a white man, so likely the slave owner of the plantation that he lived. And some of these slave owners would, I won't say nice, but they were nicer than some others, and they would, at least with those children like Frederick Douglass, they would allow him to be able to read and get a little bit more, but it was like arm's length, it wasn't like the slave master's own children with his wife. It's just, okay, you're like kind of there. And it was almost like a shameful thing that they did, but it was because they were sexually assaulting these women and they didn't see them as human. So it didn't count, basically, is how they looked at it. It's like, oh, that doesn't count.
Wow. And I wonder, and that's another thing too that I wanted to think about, because I think that a lot of this privilege talk that we're seeing a lot of is very, very reminiscent of house inward or outside inward. And what I think that we don't really put in perspective when we speak about those topics is that, yeah, these biracial children were products of the slave master taking advantage of full black people. What that means is that there was some type of responsibility to these children, and there was a minimal effort that had to get put in, but that didn't mean that there was a privilege. That doesn't mean that they were treated better. That just means that they were in a separate situation that was also just as bad. Imagine being raised by your dad's wife after your dad just been cheating on your wife or his wife with all the slaves in the trailers. Is that going to be does that sound like an environment where kids thrive? And that sounds like the environment that you're speaking of right now.
Yes, that's exactly the environment. And the thing is, too, for mixed and biracial people, obviously I can't speak for all, but even when, even if you're raised as black, for an example, like that's your identity, but you know that you're biracial, there's just something different in you that you feel a connection to other cultures that you're mixed with. And it's not like you're asking for that. That's why I always say with biracials and mixed people, we didn't ask to be born, just like no one else asked to be born. So like for me, even with I'll give you guys a background story with my own family. So like I said, my mother is white and my dad is Black and Cuban. My mother's family was very racist, very, to the point where when my mom got with my dad, my grandfather disowned her, didn't talk to her for an entire year. And my mom, when I was born, because I was the first, she sent pictures to my grandfather. And my grandpa he just sent it back. He didn't even open them, nothing. And so, of course, my mom was like super upset. And my grandpa, he was also a police officer as well. And he just comes from a long line of really racist people. And then family history, they actually own slaves. Like, so it's like a big thing. Like, I come from slavery and slave owners, literally. So it's like that does something to you. Because when I think about generational curses and just like inheritance, like there's things that you pick up, whether you knew your ancestors or not, like you feel that. So that was something that was told to me at a very young age, that that's what happened. So there was like this rejection from my grandfather. Now, obviously he's changed. He's not like that anymore. But even though like we've forgiven him and everything is good, just knowing that, wow, my mom didn't talk to her dad for actually a year and a half. And when I was 6 months old, my grandpa finally came and, he met me and everything. And there's pictures and all that jazz. But that was like a big thing. And my mom, even though like they're good, my mom is still kind of like the black sheep. And, she's had to put up with a lot just being with my dad and, from black people, from her own white family, and so with biracials, we just feel this, like we empathize with our black side a lot in this country. At least we're raised to do that because of what the history, of course. But then there's also this other side, and some people argue and say, but your white side doesn't accept you. But it's like, it doesn't matter what they say. I'm also part of that culture too, just as much as I am black or just as much as I am Hispanic. And embracing that, I think, is where some of the problems, it gets a little bit crazy when biracials want to embrace their non-black side. It's just really a slippery slope because of the history.
Right, and I agree. It's actually funny that you mentioned the slave aspect. I will also tell you guys a story. All skinfolk are not kinfolk. It was not just white people who were owning slaves. I actually got a chance to speak to this woman. Yeah, I'll give him more stories about her. She was a hater, but she literally she just the truest sense of the word. But she was a black girl, dark skinned, just like me. And I first going in there was like, oh, I have a dark skinned girl to relate to. Awesome. And she ended up revealing to me, after getting closer with me or whatever, that her family actually owned slaves. And that she was one of those overseer type black people, which I could tell just by the way she acted. You could tell by like mentalities always show, but she actually was a black person whose family owned slaves. And you could tell that that mentality had like ravished within her as well. She also had like texturism problems and colorism problems. And she would say things that were very problematic. One was like, oh, I don't eat that Negro spiritual food. I'm above that Negro spiritual food. I don't eat hog moss or something like that. This same lady proceeded to be like, oh, but I love escargot.
Oh my gosh.
Like, girl, like, come on. Like, let's not do that.
Really?
But people, and that's the thing, people think that it's just, no, black people were the same. Black people are complicit in selling out other black people too. It is not just white folks who are out here benefiting off the black race. As you can see with these exoticals, there are many of colored or black people or black women who are willing to throw a black woman under the bus for a check. Like it doesn't change because the skin color. So, you can have racist people and they look just like you. And I was like the most shocked. I was like, you own slaves?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Well,
What do you mean?
That's what I was saying too, like in my video with staying on code, because like I like I said, I haven't even been on YouTube that long making this type of content. And I already have so many people that like argue with me about now not just being black or not black enough, but what kind of blackness I am. And because, I'm not just, like the
Black American.
Like, yeah, Black American, right? Because I also have Afro Latina and then also Euro Latina. So there's just different, I have all kinds of things going on. And now I have to defend that And it's just, yeah, it's crazy because you do, like you said, with like the Black people, like the overseer. I mean, I know Django isn't really, I mean, it's like a fictional movie, but it is really how it was. Like, you know, Samuel L. Jackson's character, I don't remember what his name was in the movie, and how he was. And there were slaves that even didn't want to, like, when it was abolished and finally they were free,
They
there
didn't
were
want to go
slaves that
anywhere.
they didn't want to go because they didn't know what to do.
They
They didn't
didn't
know what
have
to do
nowhere
with
to
themselves.
go.
Yeah, and they had nowhere to go either. And some of them were just like, no, we want to stay. And, you know, it's just crazy when you think about that sometimes. But yeah, there were some that they just wanted to be like, you know, I guess like the butt kissers or whatever, brown nosers to the slave. And that's why when you hear people say like, yes, massa, whatever, like you're really wanting to appease the slave master. And it's like, I guess for brownie points, or maybe you would like have I don't know, he wouldn't do something as bad that day for you or whatever it is. But yeah, you still see that plantation. My dad calls it the plantation mindset. Like a lot of Black folks are still perpetuating that, even though like you're out of it and you have more freedom than you ever had. And that's why it's just
It's
sometimes,
baffling, isn't it? Like, it's like the
yeah.
craziest thing.
Yeah, because I just think about like ancestors and like even your grandparents, you know, 50, 60, 70 years ago. And like with my grandmother living in the South and Jim Crow laws and having discrimination and segregation. And then I mentioned the story in one of my videos about my great great grandfather who actually ended up unaliving a white man who was trying to unalive him. They were trying to lynch him, and he ended up, you know, winning that fight, unaliving him. And then now they were going after him to have like a public hanging of him.
Right.
So he had to, he changed his name, packed his family up, moved somewhere else. I mean, they stayed in the South, but yeah, that last name that they had, they changed it. And so, yeah, obviously, he lived to tell that story, and it's been passed down even to me. So knowing that, and that's what they went through. And then you have people today, like Black folks today, that can't even stay on code. They can't even have a simple, sane discussion sometimes without fighting each other over something so simple, like Hebrew Israelites versus ADOS. It's just crazy to me.
Yeah, and the thing is too, I actually like, I'm fortunate to come from, because of course both of my parents are descendants of slaves, but the thing is, there were two different ways for Black people to go. Like you said, one where they stayed and they didn't want to go anywhere, and maybe they got their mule, or maybe they didn't. And there were some who they migrated. They went to the north. They went to the cities in order to find jobs and education because they were now free. My mom's side is that city side, so they migrated to the city. It wasn't good for them. Right after they moved to the city, the crack epidemic was there right afterwards. So whatever privilege that they or benefit that they made from moving was quickly lost due to the horrible environment, the crime rate, and just overall the government flushing drugs down Black communities' throat. And then the countryside, which completely looks down on city Black folks. They think that city Black folks are some of the most ratchet stereotype here. You know, that's how country Black folks will feel about city Black folks. And they stayed in the city and they kissed the white man's booty, quote unquote, and they got their land, and they will still go against Black people and be like, nah, you did the worst thing. Your level up sucks. And it's weird how we'll go against each other like that for just the illusion of some type of privilege in this world that we know we don't have, just because America and how we're built. Like I told you guys that story of them taking the home. Clearly there was no privilege, even if he was in the country or if he was in the city. But, you know, we will try to convince ourselves that we're that good Negro in order to believe that we're deserving of a privilege, or we will try to stay with the other good Negroes, or oh, let me appeal to this respectability politic. Let me not use this word. Let me be this model minority in order to be in the white man's good graces. And it's just weird because we see that happening today with all of these beauty standards and stuff. You know, like pedestalizing looser textures of hair. Nothing wrong with having those textures of hair. You can't control that. But why are we fetishizing that amongst Black people when that's not common? You know, and then over and over we see it, and it's just a cycle that seems to not stop.
Yeah, it's like a perpetuated situation that keeps happening and happening. And, you know, it's just something where you wish that people could just like come out of that, like just wake up, stop doing that, like stop perpetuating it. You don't have to be that way anymore. But it's just like I said, a generational curse where it's just brought down, you know, to each one, and it's up to the person, like to us, you know, or like when we have children, it's up to us to teach it and to not continue that cycle. Because it's really, when you perpetuate it like that, that's what keeps happening. And honestly, that was the goal of these slave masters and, you know, the racist white man, was to, you know, make you feel like nothing basically, and then put you against each other. And it's not just Black people, like, but like all people that are not white, all of these groups. Because I know you mentioned with you know, having your brother that was half Mexican, and then obviously his family, they're nice, but you know, I mean, I'm sure you know, then a lot of Mexican people they're not down with Black people. There's like
Oh, I
yeah,
know. You know, all of a
yeah,
sudden you're around and all the N-words are getting passed around like they're just,
yeah,
Tic Tacs, and it's like, okay, well,
yep.
where did this come from?
Yeah, and then in the Latino community, there is a lot of self-hate too, because I mean, of course, they're mixed with Black, Indigenous, and European as well. And they
Mhm.
have a lot, I mean, it depends where you go. A lot of the Caribbean, you know, because like my family on my grandpa's side, they come from Cuba, but like in the Dominican Republic, I mean, in Cuba, there's white Cubans and Black Cubans. A lot of the white Cubans came to America because they had more money. You know, they had more of the Portuguese and Spanish blood. So they were able to kind of migrate here, you know, to the States, or just have better living conditions. Because if you go to Cuba now, and I mean, it's even like, looks like back in the 1960s, you know, after
I
Fidel
saw
Castro.
pictures. It's
Yeah,
like literally it's stuck in time because
it's
of the
stuck in
money
time.
history, the money problems.
Yeah, the money history, and then of course just the you know, not being able to go there, like the ban with Fidel, because he was just that dictator that we did not, you know, America didn't have any type of trade or nothing with. So yeah, whatever happened before he took over, it was like stuck in that time. But there's a lot of Afro Cubans there, because they're stuck there. They weren't able
Celia
to get out.
Cruz. If y'all don't know, Celia Cruz is a queen of salsa. She's an Afro-Cuban.
Yep.
Love
Afro.
her.
Yeah, she's awesome. Yeah. So
I
yeah.
watched I would like literally watch I think it was a Netflix series called Celia, and I would watch it, didn't know what they were talking about, put on my closed captions, and I would just love it, cuz honestly, I can see myself in every Black girl. Our stories are so, even in Cuba, she was that Black girl. They looked at her and said, "Hey, the negra, yeah, the Black girl." Because, and I see, on, these platforms where in America they're trying to rewrite history as if, if there's Afro Latinos, there is some type of difference in the treatment or blah blah blah. No, that be light, which is like if you have like a number or something, that you be considered white. So I know that
Yeah.
it's a bit different in every country, but for the most part, when you're unambiguously Black, you're that Black girl in every culture. It doesn't matter where you're going and how you're going. You're that Black girl. Not like it's a bad thing. That's a beautiful thing to be that Black girl. Yeah, but yes, so yeah, I loved her Netflix. Whew, don't
Yeah.
get me started.
No, yeah, she's amazing. She's so funny.
She's a talent. She's a beauty. And then her husband, Pedro Knight, he was darker skinned too.
Mhm.
He would look like my father. Honestly, he looked just like my father. So literally, it really isn't much of a difference as far as different countries are concerned. From your mixed race perspective, what is going on with like we seeing like light skinned Black people mixed with Black, wanting to kind of go by different terms? We have exotical becoming a thing now. Why is this a thing? Do you have an opinion on why is this becoming more of a thing within the community? Is there any ideas of why it started?
Well, I can speak for the mixed race. Now, as far as like light skin, Black, or exoticals, like I don't know. But for mixed race, so I always wanted to be called mixed. I was raised to be called mixed because, I mean, when you look at my parents, they clearly are two different races. And I just never was one that was like, oh, I'm Black, or oh, I'm white, or whatever. Oh, I'm Hispanic. I'm like, I'm mixed. And I was raised for that. So I want to be called mixed and want to also be able to like embrace all of those cultures as a mixed race person. And as far as people online, I think a lot of mixed people want to do that, but they feel guilty about doing that because at least in the Black community, it's really hard if you decide that you want to embrace another culture. Now all of a sudden people think that you're hating your Blackness or you're trying to other yourself. And it's like, well, I am othered in a way because I don't look completely Black. I don't have a full Black experience. Yes, depending on where I'm at in the country or in society, like if I'm around a bunch of white people, then sure, I will be that Black girl or whatever they would think that I am. I'm not a white girl, so they would definitely be like, okay. But really, when you look at it, if you're more ambiguous, and it also depends on phenotype too, but when you are ambiguous, most people, they are going to perceive you as, oh, what are you? So mixed people want to be called mixed for the most part. At least I do. And, you know, people I know. I don't know about every single mixed person. Some people just want to be Black and say I'm Black to kind of make it easier and just go on about it. But obviously, historically, they had to identify as Black because of the one drop rule. There was no mixed, you're Black. But now it's like people can embrace more cultures. And so that's the reason why. Now, my opinion on the exoticals, for an example, I think it's kind of a way to feel better, like you're prettier than an unambiguous Black woman. Like that's what I got from it, honestly, because I used to watch and really love that content, but I liked it for more of the leveling up and you know, just women who have my similar phenotype. I'm like, okay, cool, yeah, that's awesome. But then once that expose happens, it's not even about like how the person looks. It's just more about, why did you lie and why are you putting down Black women when you are part Black? I mean, even if you were just like 25% Black, you're still part Black. You still have some ancestors that look like unambiguous Black women. And I've never been the type of biracial or mixed girl to put down Black women. I actually have a really soft spot for them, which is why I used to watch Chrissy's content religiously, because even though I'm like, I can't relate to everything, but you know, I want to. So yeah, anyway, we need our own space, mixed people, because we have different experiences. But yeah, but that's my opinion on Exotical.
Oh, that is very beautiful, very beautiful. I think I think everyone started off watching Chrissy. I feel like every video you watch is like, I started off watching Chrissy. Yeah, I started off watching Chrissy too, and at the time it was like an eye opener because it was like I had a vocabulary for something that I was going through but never noticed. Because I think I was always an arrogant SOB, if you ask me. So whenever I would face with colorism, it was like, are you blind? Like, what do you mean? I'm very gorgeous. Or if it was like a one thing that I would notice is that they would be like name calling and stuff. Like I was called, and this would be mostly by Black men, African booty scratcher. That was the word, and I would hate that nickname. I'm like, don't call me that, because first of all, I'm not even from Africa. Like where I'm from, like we are all Black Americans. Why are you separating me due to my skin tone? So when I watched Chrissy, I was like, okay, finally, someone understands what I go through. And then I mostly watched her for like the level up content to the pretty girl stuff, like doing my hair and stuff. I needed hair content. I did watch a few of her videos where it was mixed race women are competing with you or how to compete with mixed race women. But honestly, I don't think I took away a lot of those sentiments as much as like the other ones, like in my skin tone, like in my hair texture, blah, blah, blah. I will say though that, you know, mixed race people, they do deserve their own space because as you guys can see, it's a completely different experience. And I don't think it's completely fair to say mixed race people. I'm speaking to the mixed race people now before people say, mixed race people, and I would consider mixed race usually for the most part. I just learned it with multi-generational mixed list, so I consider that mixed race, or 50% like one parent is another race and one parent is another race. That's what I would consider mixed. They do have a different experience because they are very different in looks to us and phenotype to us. And I can honestly say that I see all the time where you'll single out people, just people in general, based off of something that maybe you don't have, and it'll be in a rude way. So I see it on both sides where the exoticals will kind of use that little anti-black tone. The expose really properly put all of that together in the video. And then you see Chrissy where it's kind of that bitter black woman narrative where it's like, oh, we hate mixed race people. Like, we just don't like y'all to do anything. Like, just sit in the corner and be our emotional punching bags. It just seems like there's two extreme narratives. And that's why I really like that you came on today, because we can see that although you don't have to agree, it's not something where it's like, I just don't understand where you're coming from. Like, you explain things very eloquently and I can understand where you're coming from. And it's very realistic what you said. And I don't feel offended and so on and so forth. And I hope you weren't offended by anything I said. And I think it's the same way.
Yeah.
So,
Oh,
yeah,
not at all.
there's no balance. I feel like there is no balance in today's YouTube society. Okay, you can continue. I'm sorry.
Oh no, you're fine. No, there is no balance at all. And I'm glad that I was explaining things eloquently, because it's like midnight. So I'm thinking, like, I felt like I sound like, oh, blah, 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 blah.
Same.
But yeah, like normally I am a little bit more eloquent than this, but yeah, so thank you. I appreciate that. I'm trying to get the words out right. But yeah, it's just interesting. There is no balance, and I just feel like people want to fight. Like, that's really all it is. Like, even in my comment section, I just always have somebody debating with me. And I was talking to my dad, which, I mean, that's to be expected as a content creator, right? You're gonna have people, especially when you're talking about issue like Black empowerment or mixed empowerment or whatever, when you're talking about people's race and heritage and just other strategic things like you do as well, and leveling up, that kind of stuff, it does make people have different types of opinions, and people come from different parts of the world and different cultures as well. And certain things that you say, it might be meaning something different to the next person. So yeah, it's like you have to almost, like, you can't appeal to everybody, obviously, but you want to be sensitive. Like, I try to think of my viewers, and I'm like, okay, let me be sensitive. So if I'm addressing mostly Black people in this content, but I just did a video about white people, you know, and I was like, oh my gosh, if a white person sees this, they're probably gonna be like, oh my gosh, they're like being, you know, racist. But it's like, I'm really not. I'm just, I talk about everybody on there, you know, because as my experience as a mixed race person, and there does have to be that balance. And see, what's interesting with Chrissy is, I do remember her saying a couple things here and there about biracial people, but I never got the vibe that she hates biracial people. Like, I mean, I know a lot of biracial people say that, and I'm like, okay, maybe I need to, like, I mean, I haven't watched every single one of her videos, but I have watched a lot of her content, and I have never really gotten that vibe from that. And there's a couple other Black empowerment content creators that I didn't get that vibe from them either. The ones that actually flat out say something racist, like they called us mutts or whatever, like Lexus Exodus or whatever, like something like that. Okay, I see that.
We got to talk about that Lexus Exodus. I'm glad you said something. Okay.
Yeah, I never heard of her until like whatever last week, and I made that one video and I couldn't even watch it because it was so racist. And I'm like, wow, that I can't even watch the rest of it. I just heard a few words, and it was all coming at us with white mothers though, like, because there's a big difference with biracials with Black mothers versus white mothers as well, that different experience and everything too. So yeah, oh my gosh, I just didn't get the same vibe though, like that maybe some mixed and biracials might get from some of these Black content creators. But yeah, so that's why when I was like watching the Exotical space, and I would see that a lot of it was focused on Chrissy and like her talking points and like mentioning her a lot. I'm like, why? I mean, she's just a Black woman doing her thing on her space, trying to empower people who look like her, and there's nothing wrong with that. And there's nothing wrong with white people to do that, Asian people to do that. You know, so that's why I'm like, I don't understand why we have to get on other people's spaces and use them, especially unambiguous Black women, as a punching bag to get content, because that's what's going to sell the content. because you got white people lurking in the streets too, seeing other people of color tearing apart unambiguous Black women, and they do it as well, and they make money off of it. Because I see Indian people doing it, Asian people, you know, all kinds of people doing that. So
that's so great. I'm glad you said that. And that's like my huge issue with the platforms that are popping out too, is that nothing is sacred anymore. I believe at like one point, you know, everyone was calling every Black woman out in the name of accountability, but I feel like we're past accountability at this point, especially for Black centered topics. What else are we to be accountable for? I also feel like, you know, I never got that vibe from Chrissy, but I think that a lot of the issues with Chrissy's content, or what they claimed the issues with Chrissy's content is that I heard some people say that they were upset about her saying that these are Black women, these are women that look like white women that are dipped in chocolate or something like that. So I guess there was some issues with featureism there, where she was talking about unambiguous Black woman and the difference between ambiguous Black women. I really do think, though, that the Exotical platform is really the condition of what the beauty standard has been in America for the past 10 years, at least on the Black side. Oh, that mixed fishing thing was such a huge thing. And I didn't think we'd ever get here when I heard about mixed fishing a few years ago, because of course it started with the white lady. And how I see now with these exoticals, I see it as the same thing as mixed fishing. Even if they are you know, not lying about where they come from or where their heritage is, I think that I'm seeing it as almost a band-aid for the insecurities that they have with Blackness. I think that they feel like putting like an exotical parsley or an exotical sprinkle over Blackness makes it better. And by doing that, it kind of decenters all of the struggle that Black Americans have talked about. I believe that the exoticals are just Black women who want to decenter Black struggle and attempts to have a more positive image in the media. I just don't think you can do that while bashing the other women. I just think that it loses every time for me. But that was my thought process.
No, that's exactly where I'm at, which is why I stopped watching that content, because I just don't think that you have to bash anyone in order to get ahead. And if you do, then it's really not legit. Like, to me, you don't really have good talking points. You're just trying to bump yourself up because you feel so bad about yourself. And I mean, like I said, once the expose happened, I'm just thinking, wow, okay, so this person is upset about, they're not completely happy with being Black or like looking. I mean, to me, she just looks Black. Okay. I know she says it's not her, but if it wasn't, then she wouldn't be acting the way that she's acting about it. It would be like, no gay. Like if I'm anonymous and somebody has my picture and they're saying that this is me, but I know it's not me, I'm not going to act crazy. I'm just gonna be like, yeah, that's not me at all. And then just keep it popping. But obviously it is. And I just feel like it shows, it makes sense why, like when I listen to that content, what moving the goalpost of what is light skin and keep talking about what is light skin. Like to me, that's not empowering. Like, you know, that's just like, why do we have to talk about our skin all the time? What is light skin? Everyone knows what light skin is. I mean, it's subjective to a point, but it's not like so subjective where it's like, okay, yeah, I don't even like, you can be dark skin and I'm calling you light skin, because in my eyes, unless you are like charcoal Black, you're light skin, basically. You know, like that's what I'm saying. Like it's really not that subjective. Like everyone knows what light skin is and what dark skin is.
And that's what I disliked about like a lot of the critiques I got about my Exotical videos, especially the one where I was showing like her bleaching and a little bit of how we got there. I didn't like how I'm sorry, I just lost my entire train of thought. Yeah, I didn't like how they were acting like it was just like ambiguous was just so like we just couldn't understand. Like I need pictures and a graph and I need someone to explain it to me. I have met very few ambiguous people. Even mixed race people who have like a Black and a white parent or who are mixed race to some degree, I can tell that they're mixed race. I know exactly what they're mixed with. I can identify it very, very easily. It's not anything where I'm left scratching my head or confused about. So
Mm-hmm.
to see like there's a lot of this conversation where it's like everyone's stuck in this twilight zone of ambiguity, when in reality most people aren't. Like most people aren't that ambiguous. I actually have met one dude who was like, I truly didn't have any idea what he was, and that is rare. He was like
Mm-hmm.
he was like dark skinned, but he wasn't like my type of dark skin. I have like a cooler skin tone. He had like a lot of red in his undertone. So I was like, okay, maybe he could be black, but he doesn't. I'm not sure if he's black. His hair was jet black and straight, kind of short. I was like, he could be like a South Asian. I'm not sure. I ended up asking him. They were like, well, what do you think he is? Oh, that's why I was thinking about it. They asked me what I thought he was, and I couldn't, for the life of me, understand. I was like, I don't know. I'm confused. And he was like, my dad's from the island of Bermuda. Now I don't know where that is, but
Mm-hmm.
clearly those people look different, and I wasn't able to discern it. Most people aren't that, mysterious that you can't tell what they are, even if they are mixed race. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. Yeah, because a lot of biracials, for example, they have that look where you can tell that they're biracial. Maybe some, and they might look a little bit more black, or some a little more white, or a little mixture of the two. Every once in a while, you might get some that look Latina or Arab. I just know, at least for me in my case, no one ever knows what I am, like, for the most part. Like, they know I'm mixed, but they're like, with what? Like, there's always that with what type of deal. So in my experience, I always have to explain to people. So that's funny that you said, what do you think he is? I'm like, I literally ask people that. Like, if they don't know, they're like, hey, where are you from, or what do you mix with, or whatever. I'm like, what do you think? And it's so funny, the different things that I get. It's like so many different things, but mostly it's like either Latina or it's like Arab or something like that. And like sometimes people think black and white, but usually it's all over the map. People think I'm everything. So yeah, it's just different for different biracials and mixed people, depending on what your mix is as well. And I mean, I think with me, because of the Latina, and then also there's a little bit of the like Caribbean in there too, the Bohemian. So that's also, that kind of gives that different look as well.
Very, very, that's very insightful. And I think that sometimes as Black American people, I told you guys about me meeting the Somalian girl for the first time. We're missing out on all this education. We don't know. Like, we don't know what you don't know. We don't know what foreign Black people look like. We don't know there's difference. I couldn't tell you from, this or that. The only thing you can do is, mix around outside of your culture and ask questions, what we're doing here today. And I love that. And I think that we can, get outside of the stereotypes and just speak to people like people and just enjoy each other's conversations. And as Afro people anyway, regardless of where the diaspora you're from, we share stories orally. Like that, this is how we spread our history, through talking. We're not really writers like that. We don't like to do that. We like to talk, and we sing and we dance, and that's how you learn a bit of our history. So that's why it's super important for us to do this, because you will have folks painting unambiguous Black women in one brush when that's not us. We know our culture. We love our culture. I do not mind being a descendant of a slave. I think it's quite awesome, if you ask me. And I'm not going to like duck and dive because someone calls me a descendant of a slave. And I'm pretty sure in the same breath for you showed your grandmother, and she's gorgeous, by the way,
Oh,
and you had to defend, like, hey, don't be coming on here talking crazy. You'll get blocked. So it's
Yeah.
important for people to understand that even if you don't see our duality, we all have it, even unambiguous women as well.
Oh yeah, for sure. And yeah, I mean, I'm proud of it too. But yeah, there was some guy, I guess. I mean, I heard he's a troll. It was kind of like a trollish thing, but I went to his channel and he's got all kinds of things talking about ADOS, I guess. But he's saying that I'm not, because of the Cuban thing or whatever. But he's like, you aren't us. And it's just crazy. I'm like, this is what's wrong in the Black community. What do you mean you are not us? I'm not you, or whatever. Like, well, I'm not, definitely not, because I'm not in a cult. And that's what that kind of reminded me of a little bit. It reminded me of like the Black Hebrew Israelites, which, I mean, whatever, people are allowed to believe what they want. But just when you start gatekeeping a certain group and saying, this is our group and you're not in it, that's when I have a problem. I'm like, dude, it's not that serious.
Right. This
But
is
yeah,
YouTube.
yes, it's YouTube for one. And then, yeah, just continue. Like I'm all for engaging in content. And if people ask me questions or have a little debate, that's fine. But when you start coming at my character and, saying certain things, especially when I know my family and I can trace my roots back all the way to Fulton County, Atlanta, Georgia, and all these different places and plantations. Like I know you mentioned the plantations that, it's like same here, so it's like when you know your history, especially your family history, that's a power. No one can take that away from you. And when someone comes at it, ooh, that's like, you're not only coming from me, but you're coming from my ancestors. And I know what they did for like this country and just for their families and the things that they went through. So someone attacking you is basically like a slap in the face to your whole entire family. And yeah, that's what I'm like, most of these people don't even know where they come from. And they just like latch on to a group to feel like they belong. And that's just the issue that I see a lot in the Black community, where like when you're mixed and you see in the white community, they have their problems too, but they definitely stay on code. And you don't really hear too much because they fight behind closed doors. Like if they have a problem, that white issues, like for the most part, they're not just spreading it out there. And if they do, they retract real quick. Like that one girl, Tommy Lauren or whatever her last name is, that conservative woman that used to just say the most craziest thing. She's
I
like,
remember her, the blonde lady.
Yes, the blonde lady. And a few years ago, she came out and she was saying things against men or whatever. And then she apologized real quick because those white men were like, oh, no. Oh, no.
They're not going to have that. They may have gender wars within the Black community. They are not going to start that on the white side. They will refuse. They're already having issues with their birthing rates. You think you're going to start a gender war between white people? You got another thing coming.
Exactly. They are on code. That's what I'm saying. Now, I'm sure she heard it. She got backlash for sure, but she deleted that video and apologized real quick. It took like a day and that was already off, and you don't really hear about it anymore unless you're really following that story specifically. But when you hear about white people and gender wars and even like race wars or whatever, like you just don't see that in their communities. And they don't really have a bunch of different sectors either. Like the only different sectors is like Nazis and KKK. And then you just have like your
the Aryan brothers and stuff like that, right?
Yeah. Yeah. But they're just
okay.
White. Yeah. So they're just like, we're just here. And they're a minority, like to the rest of the white folks. So yeah, but they just they keep their circles. That's what they do. And they're not divisive amongst their race. Like they're not ripping their own race apart.
At least not anymore. I do know Wake Up had mentioned like the Italians and the Irish, they were discriminated against when they first came down here. Even Korean people too, when they were coming over, there was a lot of discrimination.
Oh yeah.
They realized that didn't work. They realized that they might as well get it real centralized within the community, because it wouldn't have done them any good if the Italians were fighting with the Irish, were fighting with the Scottish, were fighting with the English, it wouldn't have done any well. And that's what I see is happening here, is like a new form of fighting, which is like it's infighting within Black people, where we have the tribes are now going back and forth against each other. So you have South African people going against Black Americans, going against Afro Latinos, and it seems like nobody is cool. And I was weird because growing up for me, I was all about all Black was we were all, depending on where it didn't matter. Black was Black and we were all beautiful and that we were all sticking together and in this together. And I'm seeing that, that's not true. And Black Americans need to get it together, because them Black foreigners, they're looking like they're waiting to say deuces.
Yeah.
Really quick.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. And yeah, with like going back to the Irish and the Italians, yeah, that's like a real thing that happened too. And a lot of the Irish people, like, they were in contracts for like 4 to 7 year periods to make them
servants.
Yeah, exactly. Because a lot of people say, oh, the Irish people were slaves too, but it's like not the same at all. They were working as servants and they were not treated the same way as the Black American slaves, obviously. And then that was like kind of paying off a debt to enter the new world, to come here. And then the Italians, the same thing. Most of them were really poor, so they had to work hard to make that extra money to afford to live here. Whereas the English, they had been here, like the early settlers and Germans and whoever else, they had already been here. So they're kind of like, yeah. So most white people's, a lot of their divisiveness is their status, the social stuff, like we talked about earlier. Like if you're poor and
They
you're in
don't-
a white society, they'll look at you as white trash. And that's as far as they go with it. So they'll be like, yeah, you're not part of this group, you're white trash or whatever. But
I
yeah,
hear a lot of people talking about like the trailer park white people too. Is that like the same type of thing?
Oh yeah. So like when you talk about like just your regular common white folk, not necessarily a rich person, just like a regular white person, and then someone in a trailer park. So unless there's some type of I guess they're going to get to an argument or whatever, they'll say things like, yeah, this trailer trash, or yeah, oh, she's just trashy. And I just see it even in my own family. Like that if they see somebody or they talk about someone who happens to be, and they're not being mean, they're just kind of like, oh yeah, well, she's kind of, you know, she's a little trashy. So
She said what she said.
yeah, you know what I mean? So that's just how they are there. You know, it's so crazy. It's such a subtle thing too. And they do it behind closed doors. Like it's a family discussion. They don't go out online and say a bunch of, not usually, of course you can always find somebody who's out there saying some crazy obscene things about their own race. Like I know a couple content creators that are anonymous that bash their own people, but that are white. But, you know, it's like a different thing. They're more like MGTOW red pill men, and they bash women in general, but they really go hard at the white women. So it's like, whoa, they got it in their little sectors too. But yeah, it's just, I think it's more powerful and impactful in the Black community because of the history and how it started since slavery. When, you know, all the slaves were brought here together, you know, and a lot of them were families, but some of them were split up from their families. And then they're essentially doing the same thing. They're in the same predicament, and then turning them against each other, having you know, the biracial children coming from that, and then some of the special treatment in some aspects, and then not special treatment in other aspects. And it just has perpetuated all up to this day, even where we're still kind of here. And I think about just our ancestors and the things that they went through and what they would think if 400 years later we haven't really moved that much, really.
And
You
that's
know,
why I go so hard because, you know, if you're not careful and you don't know where you come from, or you don't know your history, and you don't have true pride or true pridefulness in it, you will go for everything. You will hear people talking about Black Americans, and yeah, I don't like Black Americans either, sounding like Uncle Ruckus, you know? And that's why I go so hard, because the fact that I'm here speaking right now to you guys is a testimony to the fact that my ancestors have made it through lynchings, 400 years of oppression. They stood tall when their back was getting broken and not getting paid for any labor. They stood through that, so much so that I was able to be born and here in 2024. So yeah, they would be rolling in our graves if they even, you know, caught for a second that even foreign Black people were trying to turn against, you know, Black American people while comfortably living off Black American rights in America. It's funny how they always do that. You know, I always have to say that because people have so much to say about Black Americans, but they love it here because we work very hard to make sure that we're treated well. I saw that other people were talking about, like in the UK, and in other countries, that Black people aren't as outspoken about racism in other countries. So they're more doormats to the other countries. Black America, we don't do that. We be quick to call out the white man. We be telling the white man tomorrow, don't be playing with me, white man. I want my rights tonight. We may not get that reparations because y'all know the white man be stingy with their money, but we still get our respect and our laws because we made that very important. Our ancestors thought that was important for us. So to see so many people kind of trying to trash on Black Americans right now, being a Black American isn't cool. I'm never going to do that. I will never. Like, I love my culture. I love my pride. And y'all ancestors will be turning in your grave. I'm just being honest, because us as Black American people, that's all y'all call us. We are literally the mixture of all African people. They were all put in the boats. they all procreated with each other. So someone from Kenya was procreating with someone from Ghana, was procreating from someone from Somalia, and that made the mixture that you have that's Black American. So to see that some of you guys go against us like that is crazy because we're descendants of y'all.
Yeah, I mean, and then that's what I was saying in one of my videos too. Like, if you really want to get real with it, Africa's the motherland. And that's been proven that the first like human skulls were in Africa. So, I mean,